Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new edition of Betting Fools. I am your host, Alex Nevels. This is Nevz on Deck segment. Here to discuss the American League division winners, the wild cards that'll make the postseason. And I will get started with the AL Central, which I think is a foregone conclusion of who's going to win. The AL East and the AL West, a little more difficult to pan out who's going to win those divisions and who might get wild card spots. But I'm going to start in the AL Central with my number 5 team going all the way up to number 1. It's pretty obvious to me that the Kansas City Royals will finish as the number 5 seed at 58 and 104. Now, why do you ask? Pretty simple to me. It's below average pitching. Kansas City Royals, they don't have a huge payroll. Um, Man, ever since that World Series win back in, I believe it was 2015 against the Mets, just haven't been the same organization. Like I said, below average pitching. Zach Greinke is going to be their opening day starter, and they also have an expected ERA to be above 4 for all starters. When Zach Greinke is your opening day starter, who back in his heyday is really good, uh, Zach Greinke now past his prime. Came up in the Kansas City Royals organization back in the day, but this team's just going to really struggle. Some bright spots though with Kansas City is they do have some young talent. They do have Bobby Witt Jr., who I think is going to progress in his second year. They have Vinny Pasquantino, fellow Italian, so give him props. I think he's going to be another bright spot in the lineup. Going to probably hit for about 20 home runs. A really good first baseman, as well as closer Scott Barlow. I really like Kansas City Royals. They're young, but they're just going to struggle all year. They don't have enough talent. The lineup 1 through 9, there's not a lot of depth, and I don't want to go too far into it because they are going to flirt with 95, 100 losses, and they're just going to be a team that's a couple years away from possibly competing in the AL Central. Moving on to my number 4 prediction is the Detroit Tigers. Now, Detroit spent a lot of money about a year or two ago on Javi Baez, who I believe is the most overrated player in Major League Baseball. Uh, Strikes out a lot. Very good defender, but the guy strikes out a lot, doesn't get on base particularly much. I think he hovers around 300, and that team as well. Just not, just lacks a lot of depth. Miggy Cabrera is in that lineup. He's 40 plus years old now, and his prime was MVP caliber. He's a future Hall of Famer. I do like Riley Green, who's up and coming as well, but they're just going to struggle. Even in a division that's not as strong as other divisions, Detroit Tigers just, to me, just not really strong. The pitching staff as well. They went and grabbed Eduardo Rodriguez from the Red Sox, 5 years, $80 million, but they're just, the pitching isn't really dominant. They do have a really good closer in Alex Lang. He pitched really well last year, 63 innings pitched, had 83 strikeouts. That's about a strikeout and a half per inning, which is really good in Major League Baseball. So that's one of the bright spots for the Detroit Tigers. They are dependent on Spencer Torkelson, who there's a lot of expectation for him to play well. I think he was drafted in 2020, 2021, one of those drafts, but he's just a guy that really needs to pan out for them and have a great year if they want to possibly hover around 500. I have them at 67 and 95. Nothing against the Central, but a very weak division with bottom 2 teams being extremely weak. Moving on to number 3, Chicago White Sox. Now, they had a lot of injuries last year. They have even more injuries this year. Liam Hendriks got diagnosed for cancer, and we hope that he makes a speedy recovery. But there's just a lot of question marks. Lucas Giolito had a plus 4.9 ERA. Has good stuff, but he's really struggled the last couple of years. New manager for the White Sox as well. I believe it's Rick Renteria. Tony La Russa didn't plan out well for the White Sox, and although their lineup is okay, they have Tim Anderson. I like Andrew Vaughn at first base, but this team also just kind of going to hover around 500, not meet expectations. I like Luis Robert. A lot of good players, but it doesn't seem like a team that is going to mesh well together. Like I said, 500 isn't terrible. They're going to be competing until August, but probably going to eventually go south and eventually have to get probably more pitching. I do like Dylan Cease. just like I said, suffer a lot of injuries and too many question marks, too many, they have a lot of potential, but you can't really bank on potential no matter what in life. So I like the White Sox. I don't love them. Another year to kind of get things together. The bullpen with missing Liam Hendricks, it's going to struggle. No Liam Hendricks means not a solidified closer. Guys going out of their roles kind of instead of setup men. You know, instead of long relievers, are going to be setup men, and setup men are becoming closers. You need guys that are going to be comfortable in their environment. And I think White Sox will struggle, hover around 500. But who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. I don't think I am. All right. Number 2, the Minnesota Twins. I love their lineup. Carlos Correa, who re-signed after all those physical mishaps. Byron Buxton, Max Kepler, Jose Miranda. Big expectations from Minnesota. I think they finished 83-79. They missed the postseason. They missed the division. They do have our underrated starting pitching. I like Pablo Lopez that came from the Miami Marlins in a trade. I like Sonny Gray as well. These are guys that pitched around 3.5 ERAs that can give you quality starts on any given fifth day. Joe Ryan, a lot of big expectations for him. He's a starting pitcher for the Minnesota Twins. This team's going to be above 500 most of the year. I think they kind of deteriorate in the end. Injuries happen in baseball. I don't think they have huge depth in their pitching staff. A couple of good closers in the bullpen or that could close is Jorge Lopez, Johan Duran. Both are capable back-end bullpen arms. Really like them, but I think they just kind of fall short at the end. Moving on from the Twins, though, who I think dominant. I love all of their moves in this offseason are the Cleveland Indians. 1 through 9, this lineup, insane. Probably one of my favorite lineups and one of the teams that you're going to want to watch when the baseball season arrives. Stephen Kwan, 300 average. I'm going down a list. Ahmed Rosario, 20 homers, 20 stolen bases, hovering around 300 average. Jose Ramirez, I don't even need to tell you about. If you know baseball, household name, hell of a player. Josh Bell, who came over from the Padres, 18 home runs last year, got him on a bargain 2-year, $33 million deal. 20 homers, like I said, it hovered around 18, 20 homers last year, drives in a lot of runs. He's going to be the cleanup hitter. I love me some Josh Bell. Good contact hitter, can get on base. Josh Naylor, another guy, a lot of swagger. Very clutch hits last year. Brings a big energy to that Cleveland lineup. Man, can I tell you how much I love Cleveland Indians? They are, and I don't want to give anything away, but I'm going to say it, Cleveland Indians are going to be my World Series pick. But that's later on for another show. Oscar Gonzalez, Andres Jimenez, who just signed a 6-year deal, $100 million. He's another guy who can steal bags. He's only 24. The bottom of this lineup, Mike Zunino, Miles Straw. A lot of speed at the end with Miles Straw. Jimenez, Zunino can hit homers, a good catcher. This lineup 1 through 9 is dangerous as well. And they have bench guys that can play as well. They have a lot of depth. They're starting pitching as well. Very good. Tristan McKenzie will be on the injured list to begin the season, which is a little bit of a concern. But the way this bullpen is pitched with closer Emmanuel Clase leading the way, I don't really have too much of a crazy concern, especially in a division that's weak. Shane Bieber, their ace, 2.88 ERA, 200 Ks, 36 walks on the year last year, 200 innings pitched. Can't ask for much more. Cal Quantrill as well, who I picked up in fantasy, 3.4 ERA last year. This team is just built. It really is. 1 through 5, solid pitching. You got an ace in Shane Bieber. You got Tristan McKenzie, and then a couple of good guys, 3 through 5, that can give you a quality start. Cleveland Indians, Royals, AL Central. That's the bag right now. And then I'll go to the AL West. I'm going to move kind of quick here. I'm not going to spend too much time on the AL West, especially with the Oakland A's at number 5, who are arguably the worst team actually, not even arguably, they are the worst team in Major League Baseball. Not only is their ownership and everything kind of slipped, they're just not a good team on paper, and they're not going to be a good team on the field. 52 and 110 is my overall record for the Oakland A's. They traded everyone last year. Didn't get much in return. Christian Pache is not going to be on the roster to start the year. Kyle Muller is going to be their number 1 starter who starts on opening day. I don't even know if he's the number 1. I believe these pitchers, they on any other teams, they'd be number 5 starters. Don't have a lot of depth. Ramon Laureano is going to hustle for them. I know he got caught with steroids a year or so ago and got suspended. He played well when he came back. hit about 15 home runs. Seth Brown will give you 30 homers. That'll be a bright spot for them. Esteury Ruiz as well, Shane Langlers. They have a lot of youth, but they're just really young. They're not ready to win now. It's a ball club that is just, I mean, they don't have pitching. They don't have a bullpen really as much, and just going to be a long season in general. So I have the A's at number 5, and at number 4, I have the Los Angeles Angels. Listen, they have Mike Trout. They have Shohei Ohtani. Anthony Rendon, who's going to be my pick for comeback player of the year. That offense will do okay. But again, it comes down to pitching. I don't think they have much of a closer in Carlos Estevez. Tyler Anderson's a good ad from LA. He pitched well last year, but it just seems like they're one or two more dominant guys away. These guys they're good names. They're going to play hard, but I think they just kind of hover around 500, and seems like the Angels have bad luck. Something's going to happen, whether it's an injury, someone doesn't play up to par, and they're just going to kind of coast down. I have them finishing at 72 and 90. Like I said, they had some good ads. Hunter Renfroe as well, even though he's getting older. Brandon Drury, who's a good ad as well. But man, just something about that team. There's a reason why they haven't made the postseason in roughly a decade. So tough to give Angels any kudos, especially in a very difficult division. 72 and 90, Anaheim Angels, which leads me to my number 3 team, and that is the Texas Rangers. I think they will be improved a lot. They go 80 and 82. I like the top of their top heavy lineup with Marcus Semien, Corey Seager, Nathaniel Lowe, who hit 300 with 27 bombs last year. Very underrated first baseman, probably one of the most underrated players in all of baseball. Adolis Garcia on my fantasy team, one of my favorite players in the league, hit 25 homers and stole 25 bags last year. The lineup is really good. The bottom end, Jonah Heim, not a bad catcher, but just kind of bottom end of that order, it gets a little, it's not anything scary. Texas Rangers, they did add Nathan Eovaldi, DeGrom obviously, but can DeGrom stay healthy? That's probably the number one outlier. I can't trust that he can. He's missed a lot of time the last couple of years, and they just gave him a huge contract. New manager Bruce Bochy, which obviously I love. We're at the Giants, 3 World Series rings. Corey Thompson's pissed. Anyways, it's tough for Bruce to come in and possibly. I think he's one of the best managers in all of baseball. But if they're gonna have health concerns like they did last year, which is half of baseball, if you're not healthy, you're not going to probably do well. So hopefully DeGrom stays healthy. If he can, I expect more than 80 wins, but my expectation is he gets injured again, and it's around 500. They play better, but it's 80 and 82. They hover around 500, and their ceiling is 85, 90 wins with DeGrom healthy, but I don't think that happens all year, and we'll see. So to my number 2 selection is the Houston Astros, who I believe are going to get a wild card spot at 88 and 74. Reigning world champions, added Jose Abreu. This team is stacked. Altuve did suffer that injury in the World Baseball Classic. He is out extended time. Michael Brantley out extended time as well. That's going to be tough for the Houston Astros at the beginning of the year. Verlander also gone. He goes to New York Mets. So these losses are going to add up. They don't have the full team from last year, but what will save them and give them those 88 wins is the bullpen and starting pitching. Framber Valdez had a great year. Luis Garcia, Ryan Presley, the closer for the Houston Astros, played some great ball. He's the best closer in the MLB, in my opinion. And those setup guys, Rafael Montero, Stanek, those guys playing good baseball, very reliable. Been with the Houston Astros organization for a while. That pitching will definitely carry them. Maybe they make a move at the deadline and get somebody else as well. But 88 and 74 with a wild card spot is where I have the Astros. And for my number 1 team in the AL West is the Seattle Mariners. I don't need to tell you about Julio Rodriguez, Ty France, underrated first baseman who can rake. Teoscar Hernandez, who comes from the Blue Jays, added. Jared Kelenic, if he can figure it out, if he can play good ball like he has been in spring training, hitting over 300, hitting some bombs, Jared Kelenic figures it out. This team is deep. Cal Raleigh, catcher, who hit 20-plus homers last year. man, this team is solid 1 through 9. They have depth in their lineup. I really enjoy it. And they have filthy pitching as well. Luis Castillo, who came over from the Reds a couple of years ago, 200 plus Ks, 3 ERA, played some great ball for Seattle last year when he got traded. Logan Gilbert on my fantasy team as well, 3.2 ERA, 180 Ks last year, on the come up, as well as Robbie Ray, who signed from the Blue Jays a couple of years ago, got that lucrative contract. He's going to be in the mix. George Kirby, who just came up last year as well. Everyone coming up with a mix of veterans. Seattle is ready to play ball. I love this team just like I love the Indians. It's nice and refreshing to see, even though Seattle isn't my team. I'm a San Francisco Giants fan. It is nice to see the Mariners do well again. I do like their squad. They're going to finish 93-69. They are going to not need a wild card. They have won that division. They will get a series in October, and it'll be electric because they did make the postseason last year as well. They are a very good team, and they're just continuing to build and get much, much better. So the Mariners at number 1. I like their bullpen, Paul Swold and Andres Munoz. They could both close games. I like Swold a little bit better, but hey, here we are. What can I say? So the AL East, excuse me, the AL East, 1 through 5, and I'm number 5 team, and this is the most difficult division I had to pick up. It was between Red Sox, Yankees, Blue Jays, O's, really good squads. I'm going to start number 5 at the Boston Red Sox. Now, they went out and got Justin Turner. They lost Alexander Bogaerts. I do like Yoshida, who performed very well in the Baseball Classic. But this team's also going to struggle. They did lose Nathan Eovaldi. They don't have a lot of pitching. They're depending a lot on Chris Sale to come back and be in his old form. Kike Hernandez, who's been a little bit average. Not that I hate Kike, but just think this division is so tough that the Red Sox, they didn't finish well last year, and I think they finished 72-90 this year. Just a team that missed out on the postseason. A team that's just not able to do enough. They just don't have enough pitching. Bullpen is a little suspect. I do like the guys that are coming up. Cassis from first base. He's going to play very well this year. Trenton Cassis. And, this team's just going to run into the AL East. That's what it is. You just have guys that the Blue Jays, the Rays, the Orioles, who are a lot better. And you have your arch nemesis, the Yankees. So there's that. And it's just something that, sorry, Red Sox fans, it's going to be a long year. So my number 4 team, and I'm going to pick up my notes here. My number 14 is the New York Yankees as a very big surprise. 99 wins last year. They have Aaron Judge. I get that. They have Anthony Rizzo. Volpe's coming up, and he's going to play shortstop, but there's just too many question marks. Frankie Montas is injured for the Yankees. Garrett Cole's your number 1, but I don't think Nestor Cortez pitches as good as last year. He was great, but I don't see a duplicate of that. I still think he's a good pitcher. Don't get me wrong, but he was electric last year. I think hitters kind of figured him out, and he kind of takes a step back. Domingo Germán's their number 5. There's too many question marks with New York. Even though people think on paper, they won 99 games last year. They do have Judge. They do have Rizzo, DJ LeMahieu, playing second base, but Stanton's getting older. LeMahieu's getting older. Those numbers are going to decline. Can Stanton stay healthy all year? I don't think their pitching is as good. I like Michael King in the bullpen, but I do like Clay Holmes as well. But it's an injury or two away from being around a 500 team. I have them going 78-84. I think some injury bug happens. Yankees don't perform. Judge isn't going to hit 60-plus home runs again, I don't believe. He'll still have a great year. But, they needed all those 60-plus home runs. They struggled in the second half of the season. So for the Yankees, 78-84. The division's tough, and that's the main reason why they go 78-84. They have Blue Jays. Like I said, I listed it just like the Red Sox. Blue Jays, Rays, Orioles, they're a problem. So, which leads me to my number 3 team, the Baltimore Orioles. And Orioles, like I said, 85-77. Their pitching is not dominant. It's average at best. Their lineup is really good, though. You have Cedric Mullins, Adley Rutschman, who's who's already filthy. They're talking about him as a top 3 catcher already in the MLB. Anthony Santander has good power and contact, as well as Ryan Mountcastle, an underrated lineup in my opinion. Gunnar Henderson, Austin Hayes, Adam Frazier, who comes over from Seattle. Jose Mateo, 35 stolen bases last year. These guys are ready to play, and they do have some prospects on the way. Grayson Rodriguez will be brought up pretty quick, and the O's just, again, have to compete in this division, but I think they finished 85 and 77. They barely missed out on a wild card, and they're on the up. They got to make a couple splashes. Maybe they do at the deadline, I hope. But right now with this lineup and these pitchers, 85 and 77, and they barely missed out on the postseason wild card. Going to my number 2, the Tampa Bay Rays, 91 and 71. They clinch a wild card spot against the Houston Astros. I think they beat the Astros, and they get into the postseason for a long series. So let's start with their pitching. Shane McClanahan, 3.12 ERA. Shane McClanahan is a stud. Jeffrey Springs, who came along last year with a 3.5 ERA. Their lineup is filthy. Rosarena, Wander Franco comes back from injury. A good closer in Peter Fairbanks. Rays just always have this brand to play really good baseball, even though despite the low payroll. I love what they've done with that team. Their manager, I do like as a regular season manager. In the postseason, I think he tends to shy away and get too conservative. But, for the long stretch, the long season, Tampa Bay Rays play some ball. I have them at 91-71 wild card. Number 1, Toronto Blue Jays, 100 win, 62 loss Blue Jays as my prediction. 1 through 9 lineup, I love just like the Cleveland Indians. Probably a little better than the Indians. George Springer, Bichette, Guerrero, Brandon Belt, if he stays healthy from my Giants, could do well. Alejandro Kirk, very underrated on my fantasy team. Yes, I have to mention it every time. I name a player that they're on my fantasy team. Matt Chapman, also fantasy. Dalton Varsho that they get from the Arizona Diamondbacks, Whit Merrifield, Kevin Kiermaier. Those are just guys, and they have depth on their bench. These guys, Vlad Guerrero, MVP season? I think so. Bo Bichette, really coming along, going to hit 25, 30 home runs. George Springer, we know what he's capable of. He's a World Series champion. And that pitching staff again. Kevin Gausman, Alek Manoah, Chris Bassett, who they added, Jose Barrios, who hasn't performed as well, but could have a good year. He has filthy stuff. And Yasmin Kikuchi, who came from the Mariners. I don't know if it was this year or last year, but pitching everywhere. Romano's their premier closer. Lineup has crazy depth. I love Dalton Varsho. He can catch on days off for Alejandro Kirk. I like Jansen as well for the Blue Jays. He's a backup catcher. And you need catchers these days, especially with the rule changes. You need a really good arm, really good defensive catcher. You almost need to carry 3 catchers. That's what a lot of teams are doing nowadays. They're doubling up. Catcher is a valuable position. They probably have the 3 best catchers in all of baseball. Dalton Varsho, Alejandro Kirk, Jansen. This Blue Jays team, even though it's a stacked division, I think they take off and they win 100 games. And Toronto, when that team is good, that town is buzzing. They have probably the best fans in all of Major League Baseball. Yeah, those are my predictions, man. Blue Jays winning the AL East, Cleveland Indians winning the AL Central, AL West, Seattle Mariners, they're winning, and the wild card is going to go to the Tampa Bay Rays. They're going to beat out the Astros and get that first wild card. They're going to be in the postseason, and those are my American League predictions. I think Blue Jays and Indians, they meet up in the ALCS, and Indians are on the way to the World Series. Thank you, and enjoy.